and inspiration from here.
Rambon Jan, a 15-year-old boy, has been meditating in dense jungle without food or water for 10 months. Many suggest he is a physiological and cognitive freak, with such immense power of mind over matter that it could change the way we look at modern science and medicine forever.
If he's truly gone without food and water, it's difficult to explain on a purely scientific basis, so you would have to bring in spirituality in here.
As millions of pilgrims flock to the site, we'll explore the truth.
To see that in the middle of Nepal, in the middle of all the crowds around, that's very, very special and very questioning, of course.
Is he the second coming, Buddha reincarnate? Or is this something far more sinister? An elaborate hoax in which a young boy is being starved to death before all sustenance.
The longest a person can go without food has been documented as being around 2.5 months before you die of starvation. In an open environment, breathing normally with warm air surrounding you without any fluid at all, you would last between 4, perhaps 5 days.
Rambon Jan has not eaten and, more importantly, not drunk anything for 10 months. By filming him continuously over the next 4 days, we will investigate this phenomenon and discover whether a human being can live without food and water.
It would be impossible to meditate for that long without food and water.
I studied similar cases in the past, and this is possible.
Through his deep meditation, he's gone into a hibernating state, and he is living on spiritual energy.
I can't accept that. It goes against what I know about how the body works, about the nutrition that you need. He's getting food and he's getting fluid from somewhere.
Ram has never been scientifically tested. He sits undisturbed as millions watch his every move.
If he did the same thing in Birmingham or in Baltimore, I'm not sure that the society would perceive him in the same way. Why isn't he in school? Why doesn't he get a job? He should be doing something.
Is pushing God further and further out. And where science hasn't yet encroached, you will find God.
Ram began meditating in May 2005. By November, the remarkable story hits the press worldwide. Newspapers claim fake. Government officials say that the boy's local supporters have received around £4,000 in donations. So it is here we start recording. By the end of our first day, Ram has not moved a muscle since we began filming 8 hours previously.
If you wanted to prove that he really wasn't taking any fluid at all, you would have to film continuously for at least 4 to 5 days.
At 10 p.m. we are moved back to the 50-meter fence, too far away for our infrared cameras to pick out the boy.
Without water, even under reasonably good conditions, you're talking about lasting no more than about 4 days.
He's trapped behind a gate padlocked by the brother. He has the only key. It is the only access in or out, for 10 months. He plans to continue for 6 years.
I do know of a case of a medical student who did survive without food for something like 43 days, but he was able to survive on snow.
So far, his supporters claim he has not eaten or drunk anything. Miracle or a scam. To find out the truth, we're staying on site day and night to film continuously for another 69 hours, as this is the time it takes for an average human being to die without any water.
Like 70% of the body is water. Without it, it would affect every physical functioning of the body.
By day 2, you start to cannibalize the stores of protein that you have.
I would say from day 2, your skin is going to get rough, cracks appearing at the corner of the lips, and the skin will lose its color and the brightness and the elasticity.
So far, we have not seen any of these physical changes in the boy's appearance.
He is surviving on nourishment. The question is, what kind of nourishment? We can't, as Westerners, tap into using spiritual force and spiritual energy for nourishment. That's the key here.
Recognize that.
True or not, it is apparent that Rambon Jan is putting himself in danger, not only by refusing sustenance, but also by sitting exposed to the elements and wildlife. This fatalistic attitude to death is very common in Asia.
At this time, he lacks calories, he lacks proteins, he lacks vitamins, and he lacks water. So he would be susceptible to illnesses.
He's got no ability to maintain an immune response or to support an immune response, and it does increase his risk of dying from an acute infection.
To endure solitary existence in extreme conditions, yogic techniques enable you to focus your mind over your body's suffering.
Obviously, if he's genuine, has to use some yogic techniques like feeding on the air, feeding on the breath. There are other techniques where you use a stone, okay, a little stone that you put in your mouth and you feed on the stone. There are all those stories. They are documented in the literature, in Buddhist literature.
To understand what type of yogic technique Ram is practicing from the Sakya tradition of teaching, the Lama sits and stares at the boy.
I'm amazed by this immense, the intensity of his determination. He told his mother that he was going to sit there for 6 years and reach Buddhahood, you know, which is very rare. I mean, nobody says that, you know.
They sit facing each other for more than an hour in what seems to turn into a meditation duel. Sweat starts to form on Ram's face despite a lack of movement and an air temperature of only 15 degrees centigrade.
To suddenly start pouring sweat from the face is a very strange phenomenon. He's managing to control his body's physiological process, which no one has demonstrated before. It's not something you ever see in Western society. So how that's being controlled is beyond my level of knowledge.
When he was sitting down, I was doing my meditation. Actually, I was competing. And you know that the sweat came down.
Okay, so why did you sweat?
No, it's a secret thing I don't want to tell you right now.
In ancient Buddhist texts, it is written there is a yogic technique called tumo, which increases the body's temperature under intensive meditation. Sweating is a side effect.
The question is, a young boy like that, you know, how he has mastered this kind of techniques. Obviously, he has not practiced long time in caves or in solitude or in a monastery. So it's very rare, especially nowadays, to hear that somebody is doing it in front of everybody like that. I mean, totally live.
Ram Bonjan has been sitting under a tree in the jungle of southern Nepal. His supporters claim without food or water for 10 months. 48 hours ago, we started filming continuously, day and night. Just what should his body be going through?
By day 3, you stop producing urine. The person's blood pressure will fall because there's not enough fluid in the system to maintain the circulation.
His cheeks would really start to get hollow. Your skin is going to get rough and it would crack more easily, it would bleed more easily, especially if someone is sitting in the environment and not really protected from the elements, you know, the rain and the sun and the cold weather.
Ram still looks exactly the same. We've not witnessed him move, eat or drink anything since our arrival. But strangely, we've seen him sweating profusely, an indication he's practicing tumo, an ancient form of meditation. Could this yogic technique explain how he is managing to survive and stay so healthy?
Through the power of his mind, he's been successful in physically lowering his whole metabolic state, so therefore his requirements are also going to drop to 200 to 300 calories in energy terms a day.
He'd have to be taking some nutrition from somewhere. Perhaps it was a tree sap. He would be getting sugars from that, and that would modify fast. That would protect some of his protein stores.
I think he's practicing types of ancient yogic exercises where you can feed on one breath or feed on the element in the air.
The bark of the peepal tree that Ram sits under can have a powerful healing effect on skin complaints, such as the physical signs of dehydration. However, its sap is poisonous, and its berries, while edible, only appear for 2 months of the year. He must be surviving on something else. So far, we've not seen anything to suggest he's being fed or allowed to leave the site. There's only one way out, and that is where we observe from. And we are not the only ones to be doing an investigation. Ram Bhakta Gurung and his science team have been doing independent research for the government and have been observing Buddha Boy for 6 days.
We think even there is from morning to evening, like this meditation, it's not normal.
Overnight, the temperature reaches a low of 3 degrees centigrade, the coldest night yet since our arrival. The investigators and security shiver under blankets, but Ram is wearing just a thin cloth.
What you should see in a cold evening is him physically shivering. So if he isn't shivering, he's managing to suppress the natural urge to maintain his body temperature at 36.8 degrees centigrade.
This is more evidence to suggest Ram is doing the yogic technique of intense tumo meditation.
On the 5th of January, Wednesday, around 8 o'clock, we saw fire coming from him. He stood and threw the cloth in front of him and was naked in the middle of a burning fire. And then after some time, in a very soft voice, he called for his brother. He asked for a red robe to be thrown over him. He wrapped the cloth over his body and he said, let him concentrate on his meditation and do not disturb him.
Eventually, we are allowed to film, but under close inspection from the committee. We reset our cameras to record the next 4 days and nights, the length of time it takes for a human to die without fluid. This is the only way we can prove if he is genuine or not. After 48 hours of continuous observation, Ram still hasn't moved.
What is almost unbelievable is the fact that this child manages to stay in the same position during waking hours and sleeping hours.
Try sitting for 30 minutes or an hour, 3 hours, not moving, just concentrating.
And within 24 to 36 hours, where the skin surface reaches the contact point of where you're sitting, you will get damage to that skin area. And the formation of what we know in the Western world is called a pressure sore.
It is a most.
After 58 hours, life continues as normal. Donation boxes are filled, and the crowds start to arrive. Ram appears to show no classic signs of degeneration through fluid loss, but a closer look at our footage might help us understand his physical and mental health.
He looks unwell. If you saw this individual sat against a wall in London, you'd be very concerned about how he looks.
As life passes him by, Ram just sits calmly meditating.
There is a swelling in his neck, but whether that represents a goiter or an underactive thyroid is very difficult to say. Having a severely underactive thyroid would mean that your metabolic rate is incredibly low, which means that you can survive for a very long time without food and fluid. It almost looks like you can see the ribs showing through, and that would represent quite advanced starvation, and you started to waste away the muscles between the lungs, between the rib cages. Probably sat in that position well away from individuals is the safest thing for him in order to prevent an infection that could ultimately kill him.
Is Ram now a victim of his own success, being slowly starved to death for profit? Only time will tell.
This could